Hello again, everybody. Another example here of sex-linked crossing in our genetics textbook. So this is problem 5.12 from the Snustad book. This one is a little bit complicated looking. There's a lot of words here, and so I thought it was a good example to kind of work through. It also highlights Mendel's concept of independent assortment, that we have three different genes that we're going to talk about. They tell us here that one of them is on the X chromosome, one of them is on an autosome, and the other one is on another autosome. So those are on three completely separate pieces of DNA. So the idea of independent assortment is here. That means that we can treat these together in one gigantic cross, or we can consider them separately and combine the results by probability. So let's work by defining our labels first. This problem happens to use some of my least favorite letters. I don't personally like using letters that are easy to mistake between uppercase and lowercase, but I'm going to stick with what's in the problem because that's what we're given. So first we talk about eye color. They tell us it's due to a recessive allele that gives us this vermilion color, and that symbol is a lowercase script v. So I'm going to say here's my X-linked capital V and X-linked script V, and I'm going to try to be real clear about the script. So that's my mutant or my vermilion eye color, and the capital would be my red or my wild type eye color. Separate to that, I've got curved wings. They tell me is due to a recessive allele. I'm just going to use the letter C. Recessive allele located on an autosome. So here I've got recessive allele C is curved wing, and dominant C is wild type wing. And then a third trait that we're looking at the same time is body color. They tell me that the ebony body color is due to a recessive allele E, which would tell me that the wild type or gray in fruit flies, the normal body color, is indicated by the capital letter E. Okay, so those are the symbols I'm going to use. They then go on to tell me that I'm starting with a vermilion male, and this throws people a lot of times. When they tell me something about a fly, they're only going to tell me about the mutations that are observable. So remember that this fly has thousands of genes, and we're not talking about all of those. We're not getting a complete genotype here. They're only telling me about the mutant. So what I can assume is that it's a vermilion male. That tells me it has XY because it's a male. And on that X chromosome, I've got my vermilion mutant allele. I also can assume that the rest of the fly is true breeding wild type because the problem didn't tell me anything different. So there's my male genotype. Here's my female. They tell me is a curved wing, ebony bodied female. So female would be XX in the fruit fly. We assume that she's true breeding normal here because we don't know anything else to contradict that. Remember, most of these crosses are going to be done with true breeding parents to minimize genetic diversity in those starting stocks. But we do know that she expresses the curved ebony mutations, and so that's I'm underlining my lowercase c's here just to try to minimize confusion. So they're saying let's cross these and we'll get our F1 offspring. Now because there's a sex-linked trait in play, I have to separately list what the male and female F1s are going to look like. Now notice that if it's a male, it will have genotype XY for the sex chromosomes. Since the Y came from the parental male, the X must come from the parental female, and she only had the wild type eye color allele to give. So I have X capital V Y for the male XY genotype. The female will have XX. One of those X's came from mom. That's going to be with the wild type allele. One of those X's has to come from dad. That's with my recessive mutant allele. So mom is a heterozygote for eye color. Both male and female, it doesn't matter. The autosomes, I'm going to have a heterozygous condition for both. All right, So those are my male and female F1s. Then they tell me that the F1 males are back crossed to curved ebony females. Now remember, back crossing is a cross back to the parental generation. In this particular case, we know what we're looking for here, so that would be the cross between these males and these females, right? That's the back cross. And so when we do that and we get our F2 generation, I'm going to do it in green. I could do this as a giant Punnett square. And in fact, it wouldn't be too bad because that parental female has, a fairly simple genotype. She's homozygous for all three traits. But what I'm going to do in this example, because in a previous example I've done, one big Punnett square, I'm going to do separate ones. And so what I'm going to do here is take advantage of that idea of independent assortment, and I'm going to look at sex and wing and body separately. So as I go along here, I'm going to put male on the top, female on the side. So that male can give me X dominant V or Y. And the female can only give me X dominant V. And I'm only looking at the XY pairs right now. And so I can get that or that outcome. Two possibilities. Separate to that, I'll look at eye color, wing shape, I guess, next. And I'll keep my parents in the same direction. Okay, the female can only give me the recessive. The male had both. And so again, I get two possibilities. And then if I do a third little Punnett square with the body color, again, the female was homozygous recessive. The male is heterozygous. And so I get two possibilities. So those are my three separate little Punnett squares. You could have combined any of those you wanted to into a bigger square, but I'm doing it this way to show probability. This question asks me, what's the proportion of the F2 offspring that are wild type males? Well, if I look here, these are the only males I'm going to get. They do happen to be wild type, which is great. So I can say a 1 out of 2 probability there. And they have to have a wild type body, which, wild type wing shape, which would be here, 1 out of 2. If I need both of those things to occur in the same organism, that's an and. I'm multiplying these numbers together. And I need them to have wild type body color, which was 1 out of 2 in my third Punnett square. So the question is, what's the probability of having a wild type male which has the genotype wild type there, wild type there, and wild type there? That's 1 out of 8. I could have gone on to answer other questions, right? The chances of having a wild type female would be the same. The chances of having a curved body only or an ebony body only, whatever question you wanted to answer, you would do it in exactly the same way. You would just pick different parts of this. If you had done one large Punnett square, you certainly could have done that. It would have looked something like this. I don't have room here to do the whole thing, but you would have had the F1 male across the top, that back cross female on the side, or vice versa. The female can only give me one gamete here. It's going to have the wild type for eye color, the recessive, and the recessive. That's it. So you've got one row. The male, on the other hand, is going to be able to give me a number of different things. So I'll actually have 8 columns going across. One of them would look like that. One of them would have the Y instead and look like that. And so on, so on, so on. I'll have 8 columns across the top. And only one of those boxes that I would have, one of those 8 boxes, would fulfill the question in this particular problem. All right, so get comfortable with this. You can do big crosses, big Punnett squares. You can do smaller ones and multiply together. Remember, in the language of probability, anytime I say the word and, I'm multiplying my individual probabilities. Anytime I say the word or, I'm adding together those probabilities. So with that, we'll stop this video. I'll say good luck. Keep up your practice and let me know how I can help. Have a great day.